Hey everybody, welcome to this week's podcast. I apologize for last week's lack of podcast. We actually had, with the hurricane, our power went out, the internet went out. It was a big mess, but luckily everything's back to normal. I hope everyone else is safe as well. If you're on the East Coast, it's possible you got affected by it, but it was pretty intense there for a second. But thankfully everything's okay. So we're back up and running. Electricity, internet's back. The internet being out, that was truly panicking. But everything's great now, and I'm excited to get back on track with our live lessons, which we did this week. And I'm also excited, in case you haven't seen the announcement, we're actually going to be starting in September for all our members. We're going to be doing 2 live lessons a week, and I'm going to be going through the entire curriculum. With everything being so up and down, with schools restarting and hybrid models and remote learning and the fear with the pandemic, there's just so much. I know every state's different, every place is different, every school district is different. So it's kind of chaotic right now. And so there's a lot of doubt and uncertainty about if it's going to be a normal school year, if it's going to be an effective school year. I've heard a lot of, even my colleagues mentioned it's going to be like a lost, kind of academic year. And I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't take it that extreme where it's going to be lost, but it's definitely going to be different. But I feel like if we step up to the challenge and if we embrace kind of what's happening and approach it with the best solutions possible, we could definitely make it just as an impactful educational year, and also perhaps even learn something new along the way. There's that phrase, necessity is the mother of invention. And it's because when we're up against the wall, humanity's great at pulling out new resources, new ideas, and really coming up with great solutions. And so I feel like this academic year is going to bring us just that. We're all going to really think about, let me just make sure it's recording. Yes, it is. Thinking about the best approaches to making sure that it's an effective school year. And what I want to do is make sure it's a great musical year for your kids and for your family. And with in-home private lessons probably taking a big hit. I know I haven't been able to go into people's homes. We've been doing it on Zoom and FaceTime and Skype. So I know that's going to be different when we go back to school. And I wanted to make sure with Color Me Mozart, you were getting the full year curriculum. So I'm going to be doing 2 live lessons just as if I was your teacher at school, using Color Me Mozart in your school, in your kid's school. And I just thought that would be a really fun way for us to stay engaged throughout the year and see exactly what Color Me Mozart year would look like in the classroom. So that's going to start up in September. So make sure if you're not a member yet, go ahead and join anytime. And you'll have access to all the resources, the printables, everything, the songs, you name it. And then the live lessons especially. And there's tons of video tutorials too, just for our members. And if you're watching this on YouTube right now, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and the like button really helps us out in promoting the channel, making sure that every kid has access to music education. A big reason that we do what we do is because we know private lessons are extremely expensive, and they're not accessible to everybody in every family, every budget, especially with what's happened this year. It's such a crazy year. And so we want to make sure that every kid has access to a really good music education this year. So what I want to do today is talk a little bit about my story and how I got into music and my experience with music when I fell in love with music and how it changed my life, like from literally one day to the next. And when we grew up, my dad was a painter, my grandfather was a sculptor, and I tried drawing and painting, and I gladly admit, let me just lower the volume here a little bit. I gladly admit that I was not particularly good at those 2 things. They're fun. I still love to draw, and I loved painting when I tried. I tried sculpting. That was a complete mess. But it really wasn't my thing. Besides not being particularly good, I know you can. I'm a firm believer you can skillfully become better at just about anything in life. But it wasn't something I was being drawn to. Kind of that was my dad's thing, my grandfather's thing. And we had a piano in the house, ironically enough. My sister took lessons, but I just didn't pay attention to it at all when I was a kid. I was into other things and playing a million other games and dominoes and ping pong and video games and playing outside with my friends and skateboarding and bike riding. I mean, you name it. Just kind of typical kind of childhood. But the piano was there and my sister played, and it never kind of crossed my mind that it's something that I would want to do. And then fast forward all the way to high school. So I really wasn't kind of hit with another music decision or confrontation with music as with the piano at home until I got into high school. And I believe it was in ninth grade, if I'm not mistaken. We were kind of forced in our schedule to take an arts class, right? And I had a choice. I could take painting or piano, out of all things. And painting I had tried, like I said before, and I didn't particularly like it. So I'm like, you know what? Let me give piano a try. What's the worst that could happen? And from the first day that I stepped into piano class is there in Coney Island, John Dewey High School. I sat down at the piano. I can't say I remember the first class, but I just remember the first few classes where they showed us the music books, and I saw what music notation looked like, and I was blown away. I guess at just how the whole system worked. It was so new, something so different. I'm like, how did those black dots and lines translate to a note on the piano? And as they went explaining it, we started figuring it out, and things, whether it was the Ode to Joy that we kind of tend to learn when we're learning beginner piano. And I was blown away. I was just, that's it. I don't know, something clicked. And my friends would make fun of me because I would, like, even in other classes, I would be playing piano on the desks, like air piano. It was ridiculous. But I don't know, something took a hold of me. It made sense. And I remember coming home and telling my parents, I'm like, I think I want to pursue music, later down in the rest of the year. And I was prone to starting things, getting into something and then letting it go and forgetting about it. I guess like most kids, right? You get excited about something, you try it, you're like, eh. So they probably just thought it was going to be another phase that I was going through. But here I am, a lot of years later. Oh my goodness, 30 years later, still playing and devoting my entire life to not only playing piano, but teaching piano. And it completely changed my life. And then just falling in love with classical music and how it worked and the history of music and just how music impacted all of our lives. Music impacts all of our lives, right? And when I started kind of looking around every stage of our life, when you're a kid, you're constantly listening and singing music. When you're a teenager and discovering your tastes and likes, you tend to gravitate towards bands and types of music that express what you're going through as a teenager at the time. So you listen to those bands. Then as you go developing your taste as an adult, and you branch out to that and your experiences, and we have memories to music, and we get married to music, and we have parties to music. I mean, you name it. The amount of times that, like, you hear a song in it and people say, oh, that takes me back. Oh, that reminds me of such and such time. And as well as even sad memories, like when we're sad, we listen to certain types of music. There's such an emotional and powerful impact that music has in our lives and across every culture and every country in the world, that I was just kind of blown away. That there was this language, there was this thing that we could write together, and whether we didn't speak the same language, I could play a blues track with a Japanese player and a Russian player. It didn't matter if we spoke the same language, but we spoke the language of music. And I guess all that together combined just blew me away. And now I was in love. So then 2 years later, I applied for college for a music program. And I remember them telling me, but you've only been playing for 2 years. This might not work out. But I was stubborn as a mule, and I practiced like hours and hours a day. And sure enough, I got into the music program, and I made it my career. I did my undergrad and then my graduate in education, music education. And it just never stopped from there. And I was always playing music at church, playing music at school, teaching. Then I had a band. I played in orchestras. I played in chamber ensembles and recorded a couple of CDs, toured. It was just everything. Everything was music. Everything was revolved around music. I breathed music. The joking analogy that people are like, I breathed it, I lived it, I thought about it 24 hours a day. It really was my life, and I'm really grateful for it. It's been a wonderful journey so far. I've never been like an office person, that type of kind of career, and I just enjoyed the freedom that music gave me, and also the types of people that I got to meet, and the experiences I got to share, and the stages I've been on. There's nothing quite like sharing stage with like just an audience and just sharing that musical moment. And it's just been wonderful. So I think that's what fuels me so much now to like push to make sure that everyone can have that experience, even if you don't wind up becoming a full-time musician. That doesn't really matter. It's just the experience. It's kind of like sports, right? It doesn't matter if you're a professional athlete. There's just something wonderful about playing sports at every stage in life. I still play soccer to this day. I love it. I still sign up for leagues, and there's just something about the game that's always blown me away, and other sports as well. I love golf and I love basketball, but the act of playing sports, the joy of playing sports, team sports, solo sports, you get the physical benefit, you get the mental benefit, the discipline benefit, the camaraderie benefit, the social benefit. I mean, it's kind of endless. And I found music to be the same thing, regardless if you're going to take it to that next level. So I just hope that you can have even a small percentage of the experience that I've had with music. And if I can help you along the way to enjoy that experience and get a little bit of that kind of that magic, where you're not just, what do they call it? Like, you're a participant in music and not just a spectator, right? Like if you go watch a game being played in a stadium or an arena, that's great. That's a wonderful experience. But I guarantee you those players are having a much more intense experience than all of us that are sitting around watching them, right? And it always struck me curious how many of us are watching them, right? It's thousands of people watching 10, 20 players play on a field, right? So disproportionate. And I found with music, it's very similar. You have millions of people listening to just a handful of musicians, but not as many participating. Or sometimes people will buy a guitar or a piano and just kind of sit there. So I don't want that to happen not only to you as a parent, but also to your kids, right? It's not just about listening to music. I want them to have the benefit of reading and writing music. It's that extra language that opens up a whole new world, right? How fascinating would it be to see your kids write a song? I love when my students, I always give them homework assignments of, well, write a song, write something. Don't just copy. We're not just singing. We're not just playing covers. The Beatles are great. Ed Sheeran is great. Mozart's great. But they created what they needed to create. And now it's our turn to create. And so the better skill level you have at reading and writing that language and executing it and playing it on whatever instrument, it just opens up the world. And so the younger we start, the easier it is. So I'm grateful that I even got to start as a teenager, and look how it changed my life. I could only dream and kind of think about what would have happened to my life if I started, when I was super young, like 3, 4, 5, and not necessarily, playing, hours at a time on the piano, but at least being exposed to the symbols of music and what music looks like written on the page. And I have my iPad open here. Maybe I can zoom in really quick. But like, see, for instance, here, I just love that. The treble clef, the way it looks, and the 4/4 and the half note and the brace for the right hand and the left hand. Just that stuff to me is just exciting to see. And I'm grateful that I can look at that and that makes sense to me. And not only will your kids benefit from that too, but I promise you as a parent will also have a great time doing that too. So I hope that gives you a little bit of insight as to my story with music. And one part I did forget, even where Call Me Mozart came from. Along my music journey, I became a music therapist for a special needs preschool. And that completely changed my mind. They actually blessed my life in a way that I can never repay them for. It was just such a I did that for over a decade. And it was the most wonderful experience ever. And in that 4th or 5th year that I was doing music therapy, I realized that so many times we underestimated what these children were capable of doing. And I had noticed that they can do shapes and colors and numbers, and they can recognize them, even if they were nonverbal, even if they had Down syndrome, they could still recognize the shapes and the numbers, and sometimes even verbally say them. So I said, if they can do those symbols, there's no reason why we can't do music. And so I started kind of drawing some colors and shapes on some papers and showing them in different sequences and putting the xylophone in front of them or like a little color keyboard on in front of their fingers. And sure enough, they could play it. And the teachers were blown away. And I knew that this was something too special to not get ready and kind of release it to the world, because we need to expect more from kids because they can. They're just these beautiful little sponges that absorb whatever we give them, right? And the more wonderful things we give them, the more beautiful things that they absorb. And I have so many amazing memories of just even nonverbal kids never have spoken a word, and their first word they sing it, right? Their first words that come out of their mouth because they're singing a song, or the first time that they play something in a sequence, and even using music as a transition activity between other activities, and all the movement that's involved, and the repetition, and the ability to follow instructions in order, right? All these things are so beneficial to special needs children, and it was just wonderful. So that completely changed my life again, right? So yeah, I had that first encounter with music, then I had that second encounter with music with the preschool, and I knew that that's what I had to do, and that's really when I found my calling besides playing, but my calling as an educator, my calling as an author to make sure that kids have the best resources available for music, and I found it lacking. There are a lot of great resources, but I just found that for those first stages, there was really lacking because I couldn't find it when I needed to use it with my students, and so I wanted to make sure that was available and accessible to everybody. So with that said, that is my complete story. That brings me to present day. And I'm really glad you're with us. I'm glad for all your support, for your help, and for getting Color Me Mozart out there. Without you guys, we couldn't do it. And if you know a school, if you know other parents that can benefit from this, special needs families with nonverbal autistic kids, Down syndrome, behavioral issues, ADHD, all these things, music has been proven to reach these children in a way that other things can't. And we need to make this available to them. So thank you guys for listening today. Thank you for joining me today for this next podcast. And I will see you next week. But more importantly, I will see you Monday for our live lesson. And I hope you're practicing. So happy playing, guys. And I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye.